Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Sporting Fan Podcast. First one in a while, and I was going to speak about a different topic today, but unfortunately, we had some news come out yesterday that unfortunately, cricketing great Andrew Symonds died. He died in a single vehicle accident. Causes of the accident are still ongoing. So I'm not going to speculate what actually happens. But yeah, unfortunately, great. He was such a great player, and unfortunately, he died up in Queensland. And it's really sad for obviously his family, his friends, and obviously the greater cricketing community who love to watch him play and listen to his commentary. Now that we won't be able to, and it's not even that long after, Shane Warne and Rod Marsh died. So, now that we've lost three of the greats, it's pretty hard, and that we're not going to have all those blokes being around. And, like I said, Andrew Symonds was a fantastic cricketer, and he was an integral part of the Australia's success in the one-day format during the late 90s to the early 2000s. But what a lot of people don't realise is his career could have been very different. He was born in Birmingham in England, and he was adopted at 3 months old. He moved with his adopted family to Australia when he was a toddler. As he grew up, he was seen to be a natural athlete who was very good at both cricket and rugby league. And as it became apparent he was going to become a professional athlete, he had to make a choice whether he wanted to play cricket or rugby league. And he very nearly chose rugby league. And there were times where he actually considered switching to rugby league. He spent an off-season with the Broncos, considering to change. And at times he actually, when he wasn't playing cricket, he actually went to training with the Broncos to keep fit in that. When he did decide that he wanted to pursue a career in cricket, he was eligible to play for both the ECB. He was eligible to play for England, and he was also eligible to play for the West Indies, as one of his birth parents was West Indian. And I believe the ECB, the ruling body of England, actually approached Symonds to asking whether he would like to play for England rather than Australia. But thankfully for all the Australian fans, including myself, he decided to play for Australia. I believe it was because he basically said he had lived in Australia for the vast majority of his life. As much as he was born in England, he said that he spent virtually his whole life here and he would rather play for Australia, which is a great thing for Australian cricket. He made his debut for Queensland in the 93-94 season at 18, and it quickly became apparent that his athleticism was going to be one of his best attributes, as he was able to do things that no one else did before him. It was noticed pretty early on that he was going to be a great one-day player, and he would be able to dominate the shorter format. When he finally made his debut in 1998 for Australia, he was in and out of the side a bit, and he wasn't a lock in the side like other players, but he was always around the squad. And he finally got a lock in the team in the 2003 World Cup when he was selected in the opening game. And apparently a few of the senior blokes came up to him and said, "It's your time to step up." And in the opening game of the 2003 World Cup against Pakistan, he did exactly that. When he came in, Australia were 4 for 86. Pakistan had Australia on the ropes. They looked like they could bowl them out cheaply or, keep Australia to a low score and win the game pretty comfortably. But And he realized that there was no point hanging around because he was like, it's better to, score quickly, right? Because if he's just gonna, block out, Australia's not going to get a score. So he realized he decided to take it to Pakistan and had an incredible 143 not out. And in the end, Australia was 8 for 310 at the end of the 50 overs, and they won the game. To many, this announced his arrival on the international stage, and to this day, it is considered one of the great World Cup knocks, as well as one-day knocks, and it really got Australia flowing in that World Cup. He would also score 91 not out in the semi against Sri Lanka, which helped Australia win the game, and then got them into the final. And Australia actually won the final as well, and they went through. I believe they went through that tournament undefeated, and big part of that was because of Andrew Symonds. But despite, he was mainly known as a one-day player, but despite this, he always wanted to be in the test team for Australia, as well as a one-day team. He wanted to be in, these are obviously within the days before 2020, so there was only 2 formats then. So he wanted to be in both formats. He would get his chance, and at the start of his career, he was, again, similar to the one-day start of his one-day career. He was in and out of the side. He wasn't quite able to establish himself in his first about 10 to 12 test matches. But this would change in the Boxing Day Test in the 2006 against England. In the Ashes, a series that Australia would win 5-0. But in the Melbourne Test and the Boxing Day Test, Australia was in big trouble when he came in. Australia were about 5 for 80, and Matthew Hayden was in at the other end. Both would go on to score 150, and by the time the partnership was broken, Australia were about 360, had about 360 on the board. And by the time Symonds was dismissed, Australia were about 380. And Australia were over 200 runs ahead of England. England were bowled out for 159 in the first innings. And that partnership would basically win Australia the game. Australia would go on to win that game pretty comprehensively. And it would have been very different if he didn't stay in with Hayden. For a near 300 run partnership. The game would have been very close, and England could have had a chance of winning. Like if he got out and then Australia got bowled out for 150 or 200, the game would have been right in the balance. Like I said, England got bowled out for 159, so if Australia got bowled out for 150, you never know. So England could have won that test. And it would have meant that Australia wouldn't have won the series 5-0, which at the time there's only been 3 teams in history. Even today, there's only been 3 teams to win the Ashes 5-0. And at the time, it was only the second time it had ever happened. It was the first time in decades that happened. And of course, Australia would do it again about a decade in the 2013-14 series, but at the time it was a big deal winning 5-0. Even now it's a big deal. So it was an incredible series, innings, which really changed his Test career. He also played a key role in the rise of 2020 cricket around the world. For 2020 cricket to succeed, it really needed a couple of big names to dominate in it, people that they knew. And in terms of batting, really there was 3 people that did that, and that was Hayden, Gilchrist, and Andrew Symonds. So, the 3 of them really dominated and really changed the aspect. of this, the 2020 cricket, and because of him, because of those three, it really took off in Australia, and I think he also played a big role in helping the Big Bash as well, and as well as the IPL in India, and he was one of the marquee signings. He got something like $1.8 million in his first year in the IPL, which was one of the highest contracts of any player, let alone a foreign player, in the IPL. And it's been and that was massive money back then. Like, even now it's massive money. But, it would be like getting a $2.5 or $3 million contract today. It was one of the biggest contracts, and it really basically set him up. But, it was a really good, fund at the end of his career. And everyone remembers him for his batting, but he would often chip in with a few handy overs with the ball, and he would often, of course, he was an all-rounder, so he would chip in with the ball, and he would, he had a knack of picking up a wicket when needed. He's one of those guys that you think, a little bit of a part-time, a little bit better than a part-time, and not really good enough to be a full-time bowler, and so the batsman takes him a bit casual, and they think, we're going to smash them all around the park and hit him for six, but it wasn't like. But then he, because of that, he would often pick up a wicket, and then there was a few times where he would just take 2 or 3 wickets before the opposition even knew what was happening, and so he was a very, very valuable player with both bat and ball. But there was one other facet of the game that he took to the next level, which was fielding. He was well ahead of his time, and really, he changed the whole thinking of fielding in professional cricket. Prior to him, if the ball got through the field, there wasn't much urgency to get to the ball as there is today. He very much had the belief in, if you can cut it down from a 2 to a 1 or a 3 to a 2 or save a boundary, then save it. And he was and because he was so athletic, he was able to do it. When I spoke about Shane Warne and Rod Marsh a little over a month ago after they died, about leg spin bowling and wicketkeeping respectively, that's what Andrew Symonds was to fielding. He had a terrific pair of hands where he would very, very, very rarely drop a catch. And he would hit the stumps often when throwing the ball, which resulted in many, many run-outs. He probably hit the stumps more than anyone else in his era, and he really lifted the standard. There's one that's been circulating, yesterday and today, where he ran out Jacques Kallis in a one-day game. And it was an incredible piece of fielding where he had to move to his left, keeping in mind that he's right-handed, threw the ball with one stump to aim at, and he somehow got the ball away and hit and ran Jacques Kallis out. It was an absolutely freakish bit of fielding. And yeah, it was just incredible. That's where his fantastic athleticism came into play as well, because he was, he was so quick to the ball and he was able to release it so quickly. He was able to throw the ball, and it got so many batsmen off guard because they thought, this is an easy run, I can get in quickly. And then before you knew it, Andrew Symonds picks the ball up, throws it, and they're gone. His athleticism was incredible, and You know, a lot of the incredible fielding that we see today is a direct result because of Andrew Symonds. We wouldn't. I think eventually, inevitably, it would change because in 2020 cricket, every run out, every catch, every little thing in the field helps win you that game. But Andrew Symonds accelerated that. He didn't wait until, he was doing what blokes were doing in 2016, 17, 18, up to the present day, back 15 years ago, long before any of these kind of things were happening on a regular basis. Like, he was like, you need to, he brought the standard up. He was like, and then he was saying, everyone come up to my standard. Like, I'm not going to go down to your level, you come up to mine. And then as time went on, they started doing that, and that's where it is today. And then people are up to his, people are up to his standard now. And then he would also do this when he became a commentator. When he was a lot of blokes that watched the Big Bash and that would know this. He kept a mark on people's fielding. He goes, if it was a great, a solid piece of fielding, you would give him a point. If it was a poor piece of fielding, and he was a harsh marker, so I reckon he would do that with himself as well. Where he goes, oh, that should have been a direct hit, or geez, he did well to do a direct hit there, or that was a fantastic catch, or that should have been taken. Whatever, positive and negative, he would always go, that's excellent, excellent, good, average, poor, terrible. And he does give you different points, and it was, he was really good in that aspect. And on his commentary, he'd always call it as he saw it. Whether you agreed with him or disagreed with him, at least you knew where he stood. He would, say exactly what he thought about what the game that he was calling. He'd go, if he thought someone could move the game forward, he would say it. If he thought, the bowling needed to improve, or a particular, may possibly change a tactic, he would say it. Or he goes, the tactics have been really good by the fielding team, or the batting's been incredible. He would see both, he would be able to see from both perspectives, and he would be able to, and you always knew where he stood. He always gave his opinions on tactics, and on tactics what he would be using, and you could see why he was such a great player, simply because he understood the game so well. He understood the tactics of the game and the importance of a plan to a bit, if you're a bowling team, the importance to bowl a particular line to a batsman, or if you're a batsman, try to mix up that plan by, maybe batting outside your crease or changing your stance or what have you. He was always able to, he could see the tactics of both sides because he was an all-rounder, so he understood the psychology of both batting and bowling. And I think that's a big reason why so many people could relate to him, because there wasn't really any BS with him. He always came across as very much as someone that is what you saw is what you got. He was just a normal everyday bloke. He came across as a normal everyday bloke. He liked to fish, be out in the outdoors, who just happened to be an absolutely freakish athlete and an incredible entertainer, an absolute, great bloke. And he was also open to about his struggles and his difficulties in his life. He came out publicly, especially with his well-documented problems with alcohol, which I think a lot of people appreciated and like about him, because so often sports stars try to project a perfect image of themselves, and they try to say like, "Oh, look at me, I'm perfect, I'm perfect." Look at me, kind of thing. And then he was like, "No, stuff that. Like, sports stars are perfect. Are people too, and we have our struggles and difficulties just like everybody else. And we're not perfect. And I think that's what gravitated a lot of people to him. Like, cause he just opened up about certain things that would make that affected him. Like, for example, during a test match in Sydney, Indian spinner Harbhajan Singh racially called him a monkey. They called it like a very derogatory term. And he explained how that led him to go off the rails a bit after that. Especially the fact that, Cricket Australia kind of backed down to India and didn't really back him in that situation because India threatened to walk away from that tour if Cricket Australia didn't back down. And they stood to lose a lot of money. And they, so Cricket Australia, instead of backing one of their players, they backed the dollar, which, infuriated a lot of fans in a lot of ways. But just on it's funny how things change, right? Like, a couple of Australians make a few jokes about the, not non-racial jokes at the Sydney Test last time the Indians were here, and they throw a temper tantrum and threaten to go home. Yeah, when it's them that that actually are racist, unlike the Sydney siders, it's perfectly alright. But yeah, it's a shame that Andrew Symonds had to go through that and he wasn't backed. But it made people, whether you liked him or not, you respected him because he was just saying, "This is who I am. I'm not going to back away from. I'm not going to shy away. I'm not going to, be some fake, artificial kind of person. This is who I am. If you like me, you like me. You don't, you don't. And I'm not going to pretend that I'm anything else." And a lot of people liked him for that. And it is a shame that he is gone. It's a shame that we've now lost two of the greats, especially from that great 06-07 series. That we've lost. Two of those blokes have died now. With Shane Warne, and in a relatively short period. It wasn't even like it was. One bloke died. Shane Warne died. 3 years ago or something. He said both two blokes that have died. About 6 weeks apart from each other. So such a shame that he's gone. And both of them were so young. Shane Warne, 52. Andrew Symonds even younger, 46. Just before he's 40. He's 40. He was going to turn 47 in a couple of weeks. Both of them so young, and you just realize they're younger than my parents, and that could happen to anyone. So, it is very sad that they're both, both Andrew Symonds and Shane Warne and Rod Marsh are all no longer around. They have unfortunately all passed away, but hopefully his family. I know it's very, only happened Saturday night. Word came out Sunday morning. I hope his family, receive a lot of support. I'm sure they will. And, I'd like to hear your thoughts about Andrew Symonds, what memories you have of his career. Hopefully they're like mine, where majority of the memories of him are positive, because I always loved watching him play. I thought he was a fantastic player, especially in the short format. change the game with fielding, and move the game, and being able to speed up the game in both one day and 2020 cricket as well as test matches. So, yeah, I'm interested to hear your thoughts, and yeah, until next time, I will catch you later.